Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Leticia and I am very deep in the off season. In this series, we are talking about finding balance. We are talking about rediscovering our why, falling back in love with the process, falling back in love with bodybuilding, and to simply just not give in to the struggles of what off season truly means for us. Like I said, I'm very deep in the off season right now. The last time and the first time that I stepped on stage was in October of 2023. So it has now been a year. I actually just had my 1-year anniversary of stepping on stage just a few days ago, and it was a very bittersweet moment. Like I mentioned in my last video, this year has been so tough mentally for me, but at the same time, the package that I brought to my first show was not the package that I was hoping to bring. And I also kind of, in a way, I regret only doing one show. I didn't have the best show day experience, and I kind of walked away from that experience feeling unsatisfied and feeling like I had more left to give. Not that the prep was a waste, not that the experience was a waste, but that I should have done more than one show. I say that all the time because I put in so much work for so long. To have the experience that I had was so unfulfilling. So that was definitely tough to work through. And coming out of it on the other side, I'm just like, I feel like that is part of the reason why I'm itching to get back on stage. And it's just to kind of finish what I started. But life has not been on my side in that aspect. Like I mentioned in my last video, prepping is not in the cards for me right now. And that's been very hard to accept for me because I got into bodybuilding for that purpose. It's not just about stepping on stage. Like, I actually want to be good at this, and I actually want to make a name for myself, and I actually want to be competitive. So I understand that stepping on stage time and time and time again is not going to get me there, because bodybuilding is called bodybuilding for a reason, and all of the work that you put in is done in your off season. Regardless of how I have felt this entire year, I continue to show up, I continue to put in the work, I continue to check my boxes day in and day out, I continue to stay on plan, you know, with the exception of a couple of life things here or there, but 98% of the time I am on plan and I am checking my boxes, regardless of how I feel. And for that, I need to give myself a lot of credit and I need to give myself a lot of grace. Because although this year hasn't gone the way that I had wanted it to go, I continue to show up. I could very easily just say, you know what, well, this isn't going the way that I want it to go, or life isn't going the way that I want it to go, so what's the point? And just throw up my hands and just, you know, throw everything out the window. But I don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because I understand that regardless of how I feel, I still have to show up. I still have to check my boxes. I still have to do X, Y, and Z on a daily basis. And eventually, it's all going to come together. This year has been very mentally challenging. And what I feel like I've been trying to do is I've just been trying to get back to who I was previous to all of these emotions and all of these feelings. I've been doing a lot of work these last, couple of weeks on my mentality, my mindset, and I think it's worth sharing because bodybuilding is not easy. Bodybuilding is not for the weak, and it's tough. I feel like mindset is not something that's talked about very often. You hear about how brutal prep is, or you hear about how hard it is to reverse out of being stage lean. But how often do we really talk about, the mental aspects that go into specifically off season? When you think of a bodybuilder, you think of what they look like on stage, what their physique physically looks like. But how often do you take a step back and think about what's going on the inside? What is the protocol when the internal that you're dealing with is in your head? Mental health in the bodybuilding space is very, very important for many reasons, because I can guarantee you that my protocol was not nearly as hard physically as it was mentally. Because you have to continue to push past these mental barriers, and you have to continue to be able to show up and put in the work and do all of those things regardless of how you feel and regardless of the things that are going on inside of your head. So it's tough. And it's also tough because you have to be able to manage that by continuing to speak nicely to yourself, continuing to keep a positive mindset, continuing to work on yourself internally while you're also working on yourself externally. Because otherwise, if you leave the internal behind, you're not going to get very far with just working on yourself externally. And that's why I say it's so important to focus on your mental health during all of these phases that you're going through. Because you need to make sure that you're able to take care of yourself in order to continue to show up for yourself. And it's also important that you're able to take care of yourself so that you can show up for the people around you. Things that I have been doing for myself recently is journaling, kind of writing down how I'm feeling, writing down what I'm thinking, and practicing speaking to myself in a positive way. It's very easy to get into this mindset of speaking negatively to yourself when things are hard. I have been practicing, lifting myself up and giving myself affirmations. And these aren't necessarily things that can come from anybody else, because somebody else can tell me that I'm doing a great job. Somebody else can tell me how hard of a worker I am. But at the end of the day, I need to be able to speak those same truths to myself in order to believe them, in order to execute my protocol. I kind of found myself spinning in this wheel of speaking kindly to myself and believing the affirmations and talking to myself in a way that was positive, but then not seeing the results that I was wanting, and then kind of spiraling out of that and feeling almost like maybe I'm not actually working as hard as I think I'm working. Maybe I'm not actually trying hard enough. Maybe I'm not doing enough. And in a way, it's good to be able to check yourself in that way, because it's very important that I'm actually doing what I'm saying that I'm doing. But at the same time, if I'm checking all of my boxes, there's no reason for me to be questioning those things. And this is a conversation I had with my coach, and he said, hey, didn't know you were feeling that way, but I promise you are doing all the things. It's tough because, again, that's an outside affirmation, but I need to be able to take that outside affirmation and internalize it and actually believe it within myself. Because at the end of the day, it's different when somebody else is telling you that you're doing all the things if you don't believe that you are yourself. So this all really just comes down to believing in yourself and understanding that you can do hard things, and understanding that as long as you're controlling your variables, that's all you can do. There are so many things that are not within our control. So control what you can. Life isn't always going to play our game, and that's just something that I had to accept. But what I'm going to continue to do, and what I have continued to do, is continue to show up for myself, continue to show up for everybody else around me. But first and foremost, I'm always going to be checking my boxes. I'm always going to be showing up whether I want to or not, because it's very important for myself that I continue to do those things. The best way I can show myself love is to continue to hold my really high standards, because at the end of the day, it's going to pay off, and it's worth it, in my opinion, because I can very easily say, none of my protocols working, none of my variables working in my favor, so I might as well just throw it all out the window. But I can guarantee you that I would feel even worse in that sense. I did get to a point earlier, maybe a month or two ago, where I did think that I needed a break. I did think that I needed to take a step away. And during that time, Luis and I had gone on a trip, and I purposely did not track my food. I took my meal prep with me, but I didn't track my food. I allowed myself to have a couple treats here and there, But I very quickly realized that I thrive in my routine, and I thrive in being able to check my boxes. It was just a very foreign feeling to try to turn the switch off. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Taking that break is probably what I did need a little bit. But it made me realize that I don't want to take a break. I don't want to not check my boxes. I don't want to not show up for myself. And it was nice. The break was nice, but at the same time, I found myself kind of itching to get back into routine and get back home and, you know, all of those things. So that is something that was helpful for me. Other things I've been doing is I've been trying my best to establish a morning routine, establish a nighttime routine, and that's gonna look different for everybody. For myself, it's just very, very simple things that I'm trying to implement. But what I'm trying to do is control even more variables and make sure that I'm prioritizing self-care and I'm prioritizing my recovery, you know, and prioritizing things outside of just the physical way that I look. Because I feel like the more effort that I put into myself and the more effort that I give to myself, the more that it's manifesting into self-love. And that's the biggest thing here, because I do love myself. And I just sometimes need to remind myself that my self-love is not a product of my physical appearance. So I'm continuing to do things for myself and continuing to show up for myself in the way that I believe is best for me in this moment. So all of this to say, keep showing up for yourself. I understand that sometimes life gets hard, life gets in the way. You know, we're not going to be able to give 100% every single day, but whatever you have to give it to yourself, because it's all going to pay off and it's all going to be worth it in the end. The way that I see it is I want to love myself the same way that I love my best friends, the same way that I love my closest family members. Because if any of my closest friends, any of my family members were to speak negatively about themselves, I would be quick to jump on that and say, hey, actually, let's take a step back there. I think you're taking it a little bit too far. You're being a little bit too hard on yourself. And what I need to do is be able to understand that, yes, I have very, very high standards for myself, but at the end of the day, I'm only human. And that's what this is all about. This human experience is so beautiful. And there are so many different chapters we're going to go through. There's so many different emotions we're going to go through. There's so many different experiences that we're going to have in this lifetime. And life is so much bigger than the way that we physically look. I love myself for who I am as a person on the inside, and I do want the outside to match how I feel about myself on the inside. But at the end of the day, the physical is not going to change how much I love myself and how much I show up for myself, and all of my characteristics and who I am as a person is not going to be defined by how I look on the outside. Lots of rambling today, but I just, again, want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. And I am so very proud of you for continuing to show up. I'm so very proud of you for, you know, stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing things that are new to you and all of the above. So if you have not already, please like, subscribe, turn the notifications on. I'd love to share the rest of this journey with you if you'd like to be a part of it. Other than that, I will talk to you soon.